起点，梦想的摇篮，维州科技大学。
近日，由马里兰州参议员Susan Lee提出的几项重要法案得到了马里兰参议院的通过，其中有关于对犯罪人员使用医学手段采集 HIV 以及丙型肝炎标本的 SB 781法案，以及延长对成年人保护调查时长的法案 SB 680，还有延长征集谋杀和纵火诉讼时效的法案 SB 387。同时，我们的记者从苏珊丽那里得到最新消息，由其提出的关于枪支安全的法案 SB 224也已经得到了参议院的通过。这个法案极大地降低了社区遭受枪支犯罪的威胁。
You know, today there's another of your 2 bill, or also 3 bills on the process of the hearing. So could you share me about the bills which passed?
Certainly. Yeah, I had a pretty good week this week.
Yeah.
I've had a number of bills that I authored and introduced, and yesterday I passed a significant bill that I was very proud to work on, which would allow victims of rape or sexual assault to force the defendant who may have raped or sexually assaulted them to take an HIV test within 72 hours after the exposure or after the rape or sexual assault, so that the victim can determine whether or not that defendant had HIV. And why is that important? Because nowadays we have a advanced medical treatment called PEPs that could treat HIV effectively. In just about more than 80% of the cases, you can, treat and cure I don't know if cure, but just get rid of the HIV. But you have to use those medications within 72 hours for it to be effective. So this will give victims of rape or sexual assault a fighting chance to treat themselves in case they find out they have HIV, because they can't wait a year or 2 years or 10 days or whatever to find out if they have this, especially if there's this treatment. So I was very happy to pass this law in the Senate. It passed the Senate yesterday, and I think it will save lives and help a lot of people who have been victims of rape.
So in this law called, in this bill, it's
yes, it is SB 781.
Oh, SB. Oh.
Yeah, and it passed yesterday in the Senate. And I also had 2 other bills passed today. One would help extend the time for investigations in cases of senior abuse. That is where a senior citizen has been victim of abuse or neglect. Because 30 days is not enough time. This will be able, law enforcement and social service agency officials, this will give them the adequate time to thoroughly investigate a possible offense against a senior citizen who in some cases are some of the most vulnerable and helpless. And particularly for our immigrant senior citizens who sometimes may not be able to speak English very well and be able to communicate to law enforcement to tell them what happened to them. So this bill passed the Senate today, this afternoon. And there was another bill that passed that dealt with extending the time when law enforcement can investigate solicitation of murder or arson from 1 year to 3 years. So if somebody solicits another for another to commit a murder or arson, instead of 1 year, law enforcement has 3 years to investigate. So I think that's very important. And just about a month ago, I had a number of bills pass to help victims of human trafficking. It passed the Senate that would require training for police to be able to identify a human trafficking victim and get them out so that they can escape that situation from their traffickers and get help. And that passed the Senate. Another bill would allow the posting of hotline notices in adult entertainment centers. So the victim goes to the bathroom and sees this notice, there's a hotline they could call that hotline and be able to escape. So very often, crimes of human trafficking have always concentrated on prosecuting human trafficking, but we have to also help the victims. get out of this terrible situation. And a lot of the laws that I've passed have helped victims too. So, but I have a number of bills coming up this week that will be up for a vote dealing with protecting victims of domestic violence too, taking guns out of the hands of domestic abusers in situations where they have assaulted their victims. So I'm working on that bill right now. We're hoping to get that passed.
除了这些已通过的法案，我们对上个月提出听证的信任法案，也就是 Trust Act Bill 也做了追踪访问。苏珊丽也向我们的记者道出了为什么要提出这个法案来实行于我们的社区。
Yeah. So how about the Trust Act bill?
Yeah, that bill is very important because we don't want the federal immigration functions being given to our local police. We want our police to be protecting our communities and families against crimes and, investigating like murders, rapes, home invasions, robberies, instead of doing immigration functions. We don't want any racial profiling to occur from this because if we implement President Trump's order to make or initiative to make our law enforcement, our police, immigration officials, it'll take time away from the police to investigate crimes and make them immigration officials, and that means that people that can be stopped just based on what they look like and asked about their citizenship and detained, or asked about their green card. Now, who in the world carries around, your birth certificate to prove that you're a citizen? So hopefully the Trust Act will prevent things like racial profiling, and the people that will be the targets of racial profiling probably will be immigrants like us that look like us, and people of color like Chinese and Koreans, Asian Americans. So we don't want that to happen to our community. If you remember, just about a month or two ago, an Indian American woman who was a citizen was stopped by the Harvard County Police and detained. And we don't want a situation like that, because what if our mother or father, who maybe couldn't speak English, was taking a walk in the neighborhood, and the police could just stop her and detain her, and what if she doesn't speak what if her English is not so good, and she doesn't know what's happening, and she resists, and then something horrible could happen, and she could be thrown in jail for like 48 hours. We don't want that. Until she could produce her citizenship papers or her green card, and if she doesn't speak English, that makes it worse.